Welcome back to Tracy Take Tuesday, where we release a mock draft every Tuesday between now and the Tuesday right before the 2025 NFL Draft. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing my fourth mock draft of the 2025 offseason so far. And this is going to be a special one because the regular season has officially ended, and which means 18 teams have solidified their spot in the pecking order when it comes to 2025 NFL Draft. We're going to go through my mock draft here in a second, but before we do that, if you like the work that Ryan and I put out and you want to help the channel grow, the easiest way is hitting that subscribe button, tackling that bell to get notified when new videos come out. Leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you think of my draft and what you want your team to do in this upcoming draft. And so, Ryan, let's pull up the PFF screen. And while you're doing that, there's two caveats here. I'm still not doing trades until we get closer to the Super Bowl, where there's a little bit more solidified kind of pecking order kind of even throughout. And secondly, too, Ryan, you've been doing this a lot, and I'm going to tag team on this. I did not draft Benjamin Morrison or Cameron Williams because I don't believe they are going to declare. Once when they do, I'll start including them because I think that they could potentially be first round picks. So just in case, as we get right into it here. But with that being said, Ryan, your Patriots really screwed the pooch on this one here. You
Yeah.
guys had an amazing victory and the most meaningless game in Patriots history, I believe. And it ended up costing Gerard Mayo. That's probably not the reason why Gerard Mayo lost his job. It's probably
No.
multiple factors, but that kind of officially clinched it for him. So with that, though, the Tennessee Titans have the first overall pick. And there's 4 months to go to the draft, nearly 5, I think. I'm not entirely sure. Math wasn't my strong suit, but anyways, it kind of almost takes the excitement out of like the Patriots being the first overall pick because with this though, I think it's going to go quarterback, Travis Hunter, unless maybe the Giants really fall in love with Jalen Milroe and he really impresses, or maybe the Titans don't like the top two quarterbacks or the Browns don't want to go that route. Now, with that, though, that's where I'm going to go here. I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders as my number one going to Tennessee. Uh, I think Shedeur is going to love it in Nashville. I lived in Nashville. Great time. No state income tax. So you get to keep a lot more of that first round paycheck, first overall paycheck for a quarterback. Just saying. Then I'm going to go Cam Ward when it goes to Cleveland. Deshaun Watson even just had a kind of a hiccup in his Achilles rehab. So putting more of 2025 into question. And I think kind of with that, and then with them firing their offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, I think they're just going to come in, just clean house, and they're just going to deal with it. Have Deshaun Watson on as backup, and then if somebody would want to trade for him, or if they can figure out a way to restructure his contract to cut him, then then I think that's what they do. But I think at this point, though, I think they're going quarterback. I think they're done. I think they've solidified themselves as one of the worst trades in NFL history and
Oh
worst
yeah.
contract signings. And I'm a Falcons fan, and that Deshaun Watson contract signing is way worse than Kirk
Well,
Cousins. So
well, actually, like even like in the Falcons contract, at least they like gave themselves an out after 2 years. Like there's not they didn't fully guarantee his contract over the time period. So like I actually kind of
yeah,
respect what the Falcons did because they took a risk. It's you're like you're always going to have risk signing free agents, but the Browns like they just put all their chips on Deshaun
well,
Watson and
and that's a good point too, because not only then is it just the cap hit then from here for the next couple of years, but they also screwed themselves over the past couple of seasons by giving
yeah,
up all the draft picks. You know, and
yeah,
you go look at where
exactly.
Cleveland's picking now versus where Houston's picking, and Houston didn't even have that great of a year. Like the team didn't look that good, but they're picking much farther away from Cleveland. So I think
Yeah.
Houston, it's already been kind of determined, but Houston's definitely won that
Mm,
trade with Deshaun
oh,
Watson. So moving
for
on
sure.
now to the Giants. This to me, it's Giants are keeping Brian Dable. They're keeping Joe Schoen. I think that those are the right moves, all things considered. I think the big problem was Daniel Jones. Now they have a big question though because they missed out on the quarterbacks on who you'd want to draft. So they're going to go the free agent route and the quarterback most likely, and then probably draft a quarterback in the second round. There are a couple of potential moves that they could make that I'll talk about a little bit later here in the draft when it comes to quarterbacks. But with this though, I think you just get the best player on the board, and that's Travis Hunter. You need secondary help. It's a Travis Hunter who's probably going to be a cornerback primarily in the NFL. You get a lockdown corner over there. And then at the same time, too, a guy with Brian Dable, where we've seen him make up some magic on the offensive side of the ball. Then you get this guy to go across from Malik Neighbors. I just think that would be a good fit. And by across from Malik Neighbors, 10 to 15 snaps a game. I don't think it's going to be a full board type ordeal. But maybe in like a fourth quarter drive, you bring him in,
Th that
or maybe at the
that's
end of
what
the
I was
second
gonna
half.
say. Like, do key situations in, like, third downs, like, 2-minute drives, things like
Yeah.
situations like that, where I think you could really exploit defenses, with both of those guys on the
Yeah.
field.
And honestly, too, if anything, it just use him as a decoy. Like make him just run go routes because he is like one, he's so quick and he could catch the deep ball if he's open, but teams will still have to respect it. And then it's going to open things
Yeah.
up underneath for Malik Neighbor. So I think the fit just makes sense. Going to your New England Patriots here. This is where I think the draft really begins. New England Patriots, there's going to be the huge butterfly effect from here because Abdul Carter at 4 is one of the better prospects. I will say absolutely. So he wouldn't fall too far. But there are other guys though too. I think like Ted McMillan. Where is he going to go? Mason Graham. Where is he going to go? Ashton Genty. Where is he? Especially Ashton Genty. Where is he going to go? And I could see an argument of uh the New England Patriots going with all 4 of those guys. Will Campbell's another guy that I could see them going with as well. So there's 5 guys I could see them taking here that would cause a butterfly effect. In this round, I ended up going with Abdul Carter. You guys beat out my Falcons as the worst sack production. So I think getting the best edge rusher on the board, I think, is the route to go for you
Yeah.
guys here. So
Not
Ryan,
only
as a Patriots fan, what do you think of that?
So not only did we beat out you guys, we also had 9 sacks in 1 game. So
Yeah.
I believe we finished the season with 28 sacks. I could be mistaken, but so that means over the other 16 games we had 19 sacks, which is awful. Like
Oh yeah.
that is absolutely abysmal. And like Abdul Carter, great talent. I love him. To me, I really only believe that there's one like true blue chip prospect in this draft class, and that's Travis Hunter. Abdul Carter is like on the fringe for me just because he's only been an edge rusher for 1 year. He has a really good, really high football IQ, really good athlete. I mean, I think really good is an understatement.
Yeah.
And I just think he would bring another level to this defense. So then you would have 3 dogs up front, and hopefully that whoever comes in it can coach up Keon White to play to his potential. But Christian Barmore is a Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle. You would now go get another edge rusher. Still have Christian Gonzalez on the outside. So
Yeah.
I really do like that pick.
Yeah, no. It just trying to just raise the ceiling of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And who knows with your guys' head coach search, if you get Mike Vrabel in there, then I think already the defense is going to get better just in general. And then you go add
Yeah.
Abdul Carter. So I like that pick. At number 5 here, Jacksonville Jaguars fired their head coach, Doug Peterson. So whichever head coach is going to want to come in, they're going to want to protect their franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So for me, pretty straightforward. And Will Campbell, I think the most versatile of the offensive linemen, could play tackle. He could kick in the guard, depending on the arm length that Ryan you like to talk about a lot. And just the Jacksonville Jaguars team as a whole just need offensive linemen. And so even on
Yeah.
the tackles, Walker Little's been banged up, and that I think that experiment's probably also going to keep him as a swing tackle. Still trying to improve. Anton Harrison he was a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so just trying to improve that offensive
No,
line.
sorry. Anton Harrison was a second year guy.
Second year guy, who they draft last year? Oh,
Brian Thomas
uh,
Jr.
yeah, never mind. So it was a second year guy. Thank you. So moving on to the Raiders, kind of continuing that Ashton Genty watch. I do think the Raiders could potentially go Ashton Genty here. I did not go this route, but I'm just saying that as a fact because they Raiders team is in kind of an interesting spot here. They might keep Antonio Pierce as of this recording. He hasn't been let go. You got Brock Bowers, arguably probably already the best tight end in the league. Then Jacoby Myers is a solid guy as well. There's going to be some other guys I think that they go in the draft and pick to help out offensively, but they really need help in the running back room. So I'm just saying that as right now. But what they also need a lot of help in is the secondary as well. When healthy, they have a good defensive line, and if they can get better lockdown corners, I think this defense uh, could play a lot better in the 2025 season. So I'm going to go with Will Johnson here, going to the Las Vegas Raiders. New York Jets, I kind of went a little bit of a different route here, and I think it is a possible scenario. So, new GM, new head coach. Uh, so, a lot of uncertainty coming in there. They're going to look at that Devontae Adams cap hit, and they're going to cut him. And I think they're going to cut him, and they're going to cut uh, also Alan Lazard. If I did my math correctly, I think that clears up about 36 million $38 million in cap space. So clearing up a lot of guys here, but it does leave them down two of their more productive wide receivers. And I think they're going to want someone to go across from Garrett Wilson. So whether it's Aaron Rodgers that's going to be the quarterback next year or whoever they bring in into the offseason, I think if you go Garrett Wilson on one side, Ted McMillan on the other, I think that's a very interesting combination here. Mason Graham is an also very obvious choice as well. Like a lot of people like the idea of pairing him up with Quinn Williams. And I've done that in the past. So I always want to mix it up here. So I think Ted McMillan, I think, would be a very realistic scenario here. Because if you do go get rid of Devontae Adams, who is going to be that running mate with Garrett Wilson? And so last one here before I throw it back over to you. I've done this one multiple times, and it just makes too much sense to me. Mason Graham, this Carolina Panthers rushing defense couldn't be like it. You can't overstate how bad this defense was. I want to make sure that I am correct on this here, but I think the Carolina Panthers rushing defense gave up 200 rushing yards in their last 6 games, 6 straight games of over 200 rushing yards in their last 6 games. And yet they won
Bad.
2 of those games against the Cardinals and my Falcons. So I'm kind of bitter about that still, but I digress. I think you put Mason Graham in the middle there. I know Derek Brown was out for I think majority of the year, if not the whole year. Jack Thompson was out for majority of the year, and so I think anything on the defensive line is a route that they go. Even if they want to go edge rusher with Nick Scorton, I can see that also. So, but Ryan, I want to
Yeah.
throw it to you here real
I
quick.
I really like that pick. I think him and Derek Brown when he comes back from injury, that would be a very formidable duo. Um, they could also this is a really deep edge rusher class, so I think they could go that route and like get Mason Graham and then get an edge rusher later on. Like I think Princely Uman Kyle Kennard, some of those guys. I think in that second, third round where there's just going to be great value, just because there's 15, 20 edge guys in this class that are going to be playing. It's like playing significant roles as a rookie. I like the Tet pick, the Tet McMillan pick. I think that would be a really solid duo with him and Garrett Wilson. They complement each other very well. If they do get rid of Aaron Rodgers, which uh, Garrett Wilson has said that he will request a trade if Aaron Rodgers comes back. So I have a feeling Aaron Rodgers will not be back as a New York Jet. But I think they complement each other well. That would be, as a Patriots fan, I would not like that because they also still have Brees Hall, Braylon Allen. They're going to get I would hope, like you would hope for a more competent head coach to come in there. I thought Robert Saleh was a good head coach, but didn't seem to agree with me. So all in all, like I think that's a good pick. The Jets, it's hard to predict what the Jets are going to do right now, just with all of the uncertainty. So they could go in a lot of different ways. I like the Will Johnson pick. That defense needs some good secondary help. And Will Johnson is a phenomenal corner. He just happened to be banged up this year. And then Will Campbell, I like that pick. He can play inside or outside. We'll really have to see. A lot of people over say the combine's overrated or like try not to pay attention to the combine to get good analysis, where like it does come into like effect is like confirming priors. So for tackles, do you have the requisite arm length? For receivers, are you going to run not a 4.74? Like, do you have enough athleticism? Like, can you, if you don't run that like super explosive 40, can you at least hit 21 plus miles an hour doing the gauntlet drill as a receiver? And so for me, the combine is going to be very important for Will Campbell just to confirm that he does have the requisite arm length to be a tackle at the NFL level.
Yeah, just to add on to that versatility that he can bring. And so,
Yeah.
moving on now to the New Orleans Saints. So the worst rushing defense was the Carolina Panthers. The second worst was the New Orleans Saints. They gave up 141.41 yards of rushing yards allowed. And so to me, I think that's anything defensive line to me, just to try and improve that. Just that side of the ball here. Cam Jordan is also getting old as well, so I ended up going with Tyleik Williams. And so, sorry, I was about to say Nick Scorton because I normally have done Nick Scorton here, so I decided to make it up. But it really could be Tyleik Williams, it could be Nick Scorton, it could be Shamar Stewart, it could be any other edge. Kenneth Grant, I think, could be another guy as well. That would be very interesting. Tyleik Williams has really impressed me so far in the college football playoffs and just his film throughout this entire year. He seems like a guy who, when in one-on-one matchups, he just doesn't lose. Like maybe he ties, so it's just a draw at the line of scrimmage, which is going to allow guys, I think, to come in and provide some other pressure, or he wins and he blows up the offensive line. He gets a lot of double teams and he still is really effective. I'm very excited to watch him go up against Texas and potentially see him go up against this Texas offensive line. And so, speaking of Texas, I have Kelvin Banks going here for Chicago as well. Pretty similar to mine, like kind of reasoning for the Saints, just anything trenches. So anything offensive line. I've done Josh Simmons here. I could see if you want to go if Ariante Ursary plays really well, or White Milam if he shows that he's really versatile, or Will Campbell falls. Donovan Jackson, another Ohio State offensive lineman who has been really impressive with his versatility, kicking out to left tackle and doing a decent job there when he's been playing left guard his entire career at Ohio State. So uh, to me, I think it's pick your flavor for Chicago. They're also going to be looking for a new
Yeah.
head coach, so they're going to want to protect Caleb Williams as well. So I think addressing it in the trenches on either side of the ball, uh, but probably primarily on the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be the route that they go. So San Francisco, not the season that they were wanting to have here, picking at number 11. Once again, I think another possible Ashton Genty spot. Christian McCaffrey is getting older. I think it'd be a good segue to like your next premier running back, a guy that can take over that Christian McCaffrey role within that Kyle Shanahan offense here. I think pretty seamlessly. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. But here I ended up going a different route. I think defensively, I think they need a lot of help just in general. D line uh, wasn't the same as what it was a Super Bowl year. Nick Bosa was injured, but also to a lot of their role players that left that they brought in for the guys that they left didn't produce nearly as much. So, and at the same time too, I think that affected the secondary and opened things up as well. So I ended up actually going with Malachi Starks here. And who was the guy? They have a couple of free agents. Hufunga, did I pronounce that correctly?
Talanoa Hufanga, yeah.
Yeah. So he, let me double check. Just want to make sure. There are a couple free agents. He's gonna be a free agent. Mustafa. He hasn't been particularly super great this year. They've been also just as secondary as a whole, just been battling injuries. Tre'Davious Ward is a free agent. Also, yes, yeah.
Yeah, he
So,
is.
so I ended up going with that route as well. I'm unsure on how I feel about that pick as a whole. I think Malachi Starks could be a very versatile player that you can move around. And I think could bring a lot to this defense. But at the same time, though, too, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out where Starks is going to fit in this draft. 11 seems maybe
Yeah.
high, but at the same time, though, too, I think the Niners need the help. So I think that's going to be very interesting. And before your commentary here, this is where I have Ashton Jetty going at the Dallas Cowboys. Just makes sense. I haven't done it since my first draft. So, but yeah, want to throw it over to you here. The past couple picks.
Yeah.
How's it looking?
Uh, I'll start with the Saints. I like the Tyreek Williams pick. I think he would fix a lot of their run stuffing issues that they're having. He's definitely kind of a double team, two on me, you should be free kind of guy. So allow some linebackers to shoot some gaps and make some running plays when he's not making run stuffing plays himself. He has some pass rush upside, but at the NFL level, it's going to be few and far between. Kelvin Banks makes sense there. They need just offensive line as a whole, and I think Kelvin Banks is one of the best offensive linemen in this class, whether that's at tackle or guard. Malachi Starks, so he's such a tough evaluation for a couple reasons. One, the safety position just doesn't have a high positional value. For whatever reason, teams just don't seem to value like safeties in the draft at a higher level. With that said, Malachi Starks is probably one of the smartest defenders in this class, and he can play a number of different roles and be moved all around. And so I think, like, really, I could see teams with like he's a fringe first round grade to like this is a top 5 pick just because like he is that talented. He's coming from that Georgia defense that is always playing at a top notch, and he kind of is that next great Georgia defender in my eyes. And he can play a variety of different roles. Teams just don't seem to value that role, and so that's my kind of tear with him is like, yeah, he's really good at something that teams don't necessarily like value highly in terms of position. And
Well, and
so
so that's why I think it's going to be really interesting. And this also applies, I think, to Ashton Genty and like
Yeah.
running backs as well, is it's not like this is a super great class. I think the defensive line class, I
Mhm.
think is spectacular. I think the running back class is going to be spectacular. But but outside of that, though, the quarterback class isn't that great. Offensive line class has some question marks. The receiving class, I think, is going to have good day 2, day 3 depth, but nothing that's day 1 worthy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, and so that's why I think for with these 2 picks, and my reasoning is like these. I think they just need to get these are the Niners, especially when healthy, are still I think one of the best teams in the league, and so now they have an
Yeah.
opportunity to get a really good player, and so I think they jump on
It
it here, and that's where my reasoning also for Ashton Genty for both at pick 11 and 12.
Yeah. No, and, like, it makes sense, and I'm not, like, saying you're wrong. I just, like, uh,
I understand.
there's a lot to be factored into that, like, that pick. Ashton Genty is, like, you talked about, like, the Bijan Robinsons. Maybe he's not quite as good as Bijan, but, like, he is that caliber of running back prospect. Whereas, like, Malachi Starks, like, a great safety has, uh, less in my opinion, less value than, like, a great running back.
Yeah.
And, like, it's just a weird way that the NFL views that position. And so I am, like, very curious to see where he goes.
Yeah. No, no, no. I'm with that there. So let's get back to it. Miami Dolphins picking at 13. A lot of different routes they could go here. To me, I really like Josh Simmons, and I think if you look at Miami, they just need help on the offensive line as a whole. And I know he's coming off the injury, but he's super athletic, and it's possible too. Miami is in some pretty tough cap situation here. As of right now, they're fourth worst when it comes to cap availability. According to over the cap, barely over the cap, but if you look at effective space, about actually 15 million under. And my part of my reasoning for that though, too, Taron Armstead, if they cut him, I think would be about 14 million in cap savings. It's not saying that they would, but just some potential moves there, and even too just in general, I think they just need to increase the offensive line as a whole, even if they keep Taron Armstead. So you need to protect Tua, you need to protect Devon A. Chain, uh, just because he's one of the better running backs in the league, but you don't want him to be getting hurt, and so
Yeah,
or slowing down for any
he al
reason.
he also played right tackle at Sacramento State before he went to Ohio State, so, like, he can play either side at a high level.
Yeah.
And so just good versatility there.
Yeah, yeah, and so and also too looks like free agent wise, Kendall Lamb and Isaiah Wynn, both designated as right tackles according to over the cap, are also going to
Mhm.
be free agents. So I think you get a really good player there, and can help protect Tua's blind side also as well. So number 14, Indianapolis Colts defense just in general. I think like the back half of the defense, linebackers and secondary need to be addressed, and I agree with PFF there. So again, to Jalen Walker, to me, just a versatile, just explosive guy that can get after the quarterback. And I know he's technically a linebacker there too, but he is going to be utilized more in the blitzing. So I think someone that could drop back in coverage, maybe that could be developed, but also can get after the quarterback, try and get a little bit more pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. Could be a route that they go. Potential Malachi Stark spot, potential Jade Barron spot to me as well. Also, potential could see Colson Loveland fall off the board there too. I'm trying to address that tight end position. So my Atlanta Falcons here, not the season that we were expecting. Defensive line had a couple of really good games there, which made me think like, depending on what moves we do, we could maybe wait to go on defensive line. Or this is also a very realistic trade back spot here as well. Falcons only have 4 picks, so probably something I will definitely be experimenting as the mock drafts continue as we get closer to the draft as well. But here though, end up going with James Pierce Jr. I just think any edge rusher that's going to kind of fit that Raheem Morris system. So if you guys don't like James Pierce Jr., you can put Michael Williams in there. You can put Princely Uman Mielen. Brian, did I get
There
that
you
right?
go. You got it
Oh,
right.
I've been practicing. So, but it's just trying to get some better pass pressure. We only had 31 sacks on the season, and vast majority of those sacks came in the final 5 of 6 games. I think we only had 10 sacks going into our bye, which was in week 12. So that's not good. That's less than a sack a game. So just trying to get better talent there. We have a lot of free agents, a lot of defensive linemen that are going on free agent as well. And I know it'll be unique too because we did address the defensive line pretty significantly in last year's draft class. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to see Braylon Trice too much. We didn't really see too much of Brandon Dorless. Rook, Aurora, he looks legit, so it'll be fun seeing him kind of go a full season, especially if it's next to Grady Jarrett. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. But a lot of different routes I think the Falcons could go, but probably defensive line will be the route that they'll end up going. But who knows with Terry Fontenot. So another guy I would like the Falcons go after, but they end up passing on him here, and the Arizona Cardinals keep on taking him. Not keep on taking him, just take him. Kenneth Grant, the other defensive tackle out of Michigan. The Arizona Cardinals defense was the liability for the team this year. I think offensively they took huge strides forward with Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray connected a lot with Trey McBride. James Conner had another amazing season. They were one of the top rushing teams. So defensively, if they could get more of a run stuffing team and a guy that can also kind of eat up the middle and have with pass rushing upside, I think that's Kenneth Grant right there. I think Jonathan Gannon would love to have him in that system. I think he would work great, and especially too now that they're going to be more competitive in the NFC West. I look out for this Cardinals team next year. I think they could be a sneaky division title winner. And so, moving on now to the Cincinnati Bengals. I kind of didn't realize that this guy had fallen this far, but Nick Scorton, I think he'd fit the body of what they'd be looking for at Cincinnati. Now they did fire their DC. So maybe there'd be a new system that comes in. But if they stick with that 4-3, imagine Nick Scorton across from Trey Hendrickson, who I think had 15 sacks on the season, 16 sacks. I'd have to go back and double check. But Sam Hubbard just hasn't been the guy. He's a potential cap casualty. But just in general, though, I think they could go that route. Kenneth Grant would be a great guy if he is there. Potentially could see the Cincinnati Bengals trading up for him. And this is where I kind of started to realize, because you and I just off camera, we're talking about this class compared to other classes. And I think my comp for this class is going to be like the 2022 draft class, but with edge rushers or with defensive linemen. You remember how people were trading up for those receivers? I think it could
Yeah.
be like that because there's so many edge rusher guys and defensive line guys that are pretty similar that it's just going to be which guy does a team fall in love with? Do they want to go and make a trade for? So that's why I think it's going to be very fascinating because Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to want their guy. They could potentially trade up. Seattle, Seattle wouldn't, but Houston, if they want Kenneth Grant and want to get offensive line later, they can maybe trade up to go get Kenneth Grant. Potentially same thing with Denver. And then even as we kind of keep going down the list, like Tampa Bay, they need some edge rushers. The Rams are good there. But so that's just kind of my thought too. This is going to be very interesting in the teens section as teams might trade up to go and get the guy that they want. So let me rattle off a couple more here before I throw it back over to you.
Okay.
Seattle Seahawks. This is a guy, and if you don't like this interior offensive lineman, you could go with the next one as well because this one's also very popular. But I want to talk about Donovan Jackson here, and you've talked about him a little bit, and especially to his performance against Oregon and what he's having to do as left tackle when he's traditionally just a left guard. I think if you're Seattle and with the troubles that you've been having on the offensive line, a guy that is versatile like that could at minimum just be productive and solid at the tackle position, not his natural position, I think is a guy that you want to go after. And if you don't like Donovan Jackson, you can go get Tyler Booker. I try to mix it up here because Tyler Booker ends up going to Houston. They also need a lot of guard help as well. And so both these teams just really need to address the interior. I like both of their tackles. Like Larry Tunsil is a solid left tackle for Houston. Not more than solid, honestly. Same thing then too with Charles Cross at Seattle. So to me, it's just the interior for those teams. I think are going to be the routes that they end up going. So, and then last but not least, before I throw it back over to you, Denver Broncos take Colson Loveland here.
Oh, sorry. Who did the Texans take? Did you take Tyler Booker?
Oh yeah, sorry. Was that not clear?
No, well, but
yeah, I did kind of talk over it a little bit. So
no, yeah, you're good.
But here at 20 though, Colson Loveland going to the Denver Broncos here. I really like the setup that Sean Payton and Bo Nix have. You're going to have Cortland Sutton there. I think that they bring back Devon Villay. Marius Mims is really starting to catch on now as that speedster guy. So I think if you had a solid tight end up the middle and a guy that can, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. How good could you click? How good is Colson Loveland at the run blocking grade? I want to double check that.
He's okay. 52. So he's like, I think
50%.
70 is like a good grade.
Okay.
And so he's 52. He's a little undersized. He's going to be more of a move tight end than like an inline tight end. If you want somebody that's going to block for you, Tyler Warren is going to be that guy. where he's going to be the more like physical prospect. But Colson
Okay.
Loveland is a significant. I don't say significantly better because Tyler Warren is a pretty good receiver too, but he's a better receiver and route runner uh,
He's gonna fit
of
more
the
into
group.
that kind of motion offense that Sean Payton
Mhm.
has set up. But to your
Yeah.
point though too, then Tyler Warren, if you want to look more for a running back, which I think running back's a sneaky position here for Denver also, just my opinion. But so I guess kind of pick your flavor for the tight end spot. But I think tight end, this is where we could potentially see a tight end come off the board. So want to throw it over to you. What do you think so far?
Yeah, so kind of going back, I think Kenneth Grant was well, overall, so I remember I did my last mock draft and I kind of came to the conclusion that like teams are not going to be in love with the skill position guys just cuz a lot of them have some
Yeah.
like glaring issues or like lack of production or just something wrong with them. So like teams are going to invest in the trenches and like since like that Kelvin Banks pick, actually even like you go look Mason Graham, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna put Jalen Walker in there too because he's a hybrid edge rusher on third downs. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 10 out of 19 picks have been in the trenches. And like you can make a case for all these guys. And to me, that's what's so fun about this draft class is like Donovan Jackson. I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about him enough because especially you go look at his grades and you're like, oh, like 39 against Penn State, 60 against Purdue and all this. And you go look at like what he's doing at the end of the season. This is when he at this Penn State game, this is when he started playing left tackle. So his first start at left tackle was against Abdul Carter, which is like just insane. And like the progress that he's made just at left tackle is phenomenal. He's a good athlete. He's going to be a better guard than tackle, but
Yeah.
honestly, he's just a fantastic player. I like the Nick Scorton one, Kenneth Grant, James Pierce Jr. Like all these make a lot of sense.
Thanks. Perfect. That's a great draft. You should like and subscribe. So,
Yes.
let's see if you like this one then. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So one of the things too with Tampa Bay, I want to pull up just their stats here as well defensively. So they are 29th in passing yards allowed. Admittedly, they have had pretty significant amount of injuries in the secondary as well. So I think with that though too, I do think they need to get younger. And I've been impressed with Jade Barron. And one of the things too, I think what Jade Barron provides, if he doesn't work out so much on the outside, I think he would be a phenomenal nickel corner. And that's just kind of where the league is going to, especially too. Then if you go look at if they just pair the Buccaneers up against the Atlanta Falcons with that Zach Robinson offense, I think the Falcons ran 11 personnel. I don't know the exact percentage, but it had to be like 95% of the time that the Falcons were in 11 personnel. So they had a slot receiver. So you put Jade Barron kind of in that matchup. I think it's going to help out that Tampa Bay Buccaneers with that secondary. And you could probably say something similar with Dave Canales as well. I feel like they did a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. So
Yeah.
I think Jade Barron's going to kind of fit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers scheme and just in general raise the ceiling of talent in that room. But also I think he is a good scheme fit for some of their divisional opponents. So, all right, Steelers fans, hang with me on this one here. I decided to kind of go outside of the box on this one because you could go Emeka Egbuka just like how everybody else has been going. You could potentially go offensive tackle like with Ariante Ursary or Wyatt Milam. Milam, I think, provides a lot of versatility. But Justin Fields is probably leaving in the offseason. He's going to be a free agent. Russell Wilson is, well, I think he's technically also a free agent as well, but you could bring him back extremely cheaply. Let me double check that actually real quick. Now that I
I'll do
said
it.
it, it's on the internet forever. Nope, yeah. So they're both free agents. So Justin Fields
Okay.
and Russell Wilson are both free agents. You could probably sign them very cheaply as well. And even the cap space that you have, they're at 54 million. And so, but I I just don't know why I don't envision them going out and getting like a pricey free agent quarterback. I think they're going to stick with Fields or Wilson, probably Wilson, but he's not the future. And to me, I just throw it out there. Jalen Milrow, he's going to be a guy. I think he's going to be a guy. I think teams trade up into the first round to go and get. Like if you go look at the Giants and the route that they go, I think Brian Dable and Joe Schoen are going to want to have some sort of maybe safety net if next year goes well and they still have a job with whatever free agent quarterback that they bring in. You could also go and look at the Raiders could go and do that as well. The Browns, if somehow they don't go a quarterback, that'd be very interesting. The Jets, I think, are another team as well that could potentially trade up or looking to be drafting a quarterback in the early part of the second round. So Milrow's not going to be there in the second round. And we don't know where Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck's going to go either. I mean, they could maybe go in the second round before Pittsburgh picks, so maybe they could trade up. So for me, I think there's a lot of good talent on the Steelers team. I think secondary is going to be a need for this team as well. But as of right now, I didn't really see too many people. Like my next pick's a cornerback, so I guess they could have taken this guy. But I'll talk about him here in a second. But to me, I want to throw out Jalen Milrow. Kind of want to see what it was like. Try and get that quarterback of the future, and also too trying to keep the trend going. Steelers have gone offense for all of the Tracy Take. Every like for as long as we've been doing this, going back to 2021, they've taken offensive players. So just kind of keep that trend going here. So Ryan, that was pretty, I think, major pick. Want to throw it over to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the pick. Milrow, he didn't play great down the stretch, but
Yeah,
I think that Alabama team, just as a whole, kind of started to struggle
yeah,
down the stretch. And you just look at the improvements that he made from 2023 to 2024, and he definitely improved. His accuracy was phenomenal. Probably, he's also the best runner of this quarterback class by a
a long shot. Yeah,
very wide margin. And so I like him a lot. Character wise, I think a lot of teams are gonna fall in love with him in the interview process.
yeah,
I actually did this, but I went with Seattle.
yeah.
Uh, at this was back when they were like a month ago when they were supposed to be in the playoffs. But I picked him at 20, and he hasn't played great since then. But I still think he's a fringe first rounder, probably in that Will Levis category. But there were, in my opinion, more concerns about Will Levis than Jalen Milrow.
Well, Levis didn't have the legs that he could kind of lean and rely on.
Yeah.
And so the Steelers team, they're already a pretty run heavy offense as well. Najee Harris is going to be a free agent, and same with Jalen Warren. But I still feel like they're going to be a run heavy team first. And so I think he would add an extra dynamic to that team and
Yeah.
try and free things up a little bit because Wilson's just not the runner, and he's
Yeah.
not the thrower that he used to be. So if you get someone with Milrow in that system, if Arthur Smith ends up staying the offensive coordinator there because he's taking some head coaching interviews as of right now, I think that could be interesting. Or he could destroy his career completely. And so I'm a Falcons fan. I'm not super biased in that opinion at all. But I digress. So next up here, and Ryan, I'll do the rest of these before throwing it back to you. So
Okay.
Los Angeles Rams, they needed a lot of secondary help here. And so one thing I've noticed with Trey Amos in my like film watching him, I love his aggressiveness. And I think that would match up really well with how aggressive and effective this Rams front seven is. So I think if you go get an aggressive corner like Trey Amos, I think that the Rams would really like him in that category. They could go offensive line as well. And so Green Bay Packers here end up going with Jihad Campbell. McDuffie is a free agency, and if I'm being honest, then is going to be a free agent. And Quay Walker, he's been kind of a liability, I feel. And so I know they only drafted Quay Walker a couple years ago, but still just trying to improve that linebacking room. And Jihad Campbell is the best linebacker in this class. Kind of going back, I think, to something similar to what we mentioned with Malachi Starks and also to like the running back room. It's where is a
Mhm.
linebacker going to go? And I think a guy like Jihad Campbell could work his way up, and I could see him being a Green Bay Packer. So here with the Los Angeles Chargers, I could have gone Tyler Warren as well. That's a very popular pick here as tight end for Justin Herbert. But I actually went with another skill position player route. Ended up going with Emeka Egbuka. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this in a second, but I think Quentin Johnson is going to be. I think with Quentin Johnson, Lad McConkey, then you have Emeka Egbuka. I think you have three very effective receivers that can create their own space. And I think Emeka Egbuka would fit really well within Quentin Johnson and Lad McConkey, and I think it can make that offense really effective. I think they can get a tight end later on. They can absolutely get a running back later on. This running back class is loaded. So if you don't like Emeka Egbuka, you could put Amarian Hampton in there. I think you could put Tyler Warren in there. Luther Burden, to me, is a little bit of an overlap with Lad McConkey, but correct me if I'm wrong. So I think Emeka Egbuka was a good complement to that. So Washington Commanders, the more I look about it, the more and more we talk about it. If you haven't figured it out already, this edge class is loaded. And to me, with the Commanders, wherever they end up falling, they have stud defensive tackles with Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, who unfortunately had a season-ending injury, but then Jersey Newton has also been playing well. But they need edge rushing help, And so I think any edge rusher that they like is going to be the one that they end up maybe potentially even trading up for and really solidifying this defensive line, trying to get that defensive line from what it was like a couple years ago. So I ended up going with Michael Williams here. He was the edge rusher that was left on the board. If they like Shamar Stewart, I could see him going that way. If James Pierce Jr. falls and they like him, I could see him going that way. LT Overton potentially. Like, and that's what I say. The list just goes on and on and on. If they want to go edge specialists like a Mike Green or your guy Donovan Ezerique out of Boston College,
As
they
a
can maybe
Raku.
go Ezeraku. Sorry. So he's probably not watching the show anyway. So who cares? I might. If you are, I apologize. You're welcome on the show anytime. Donovan. So, but moving on now to Baltimore. Uh, Ronnie Stanley's going to be a free agent. I think the offensive line has improved a lot, but this is where your boy Ariante Ursary is coming off my board here as well. Even if Stanley comes back, or if they have some other guys that they want to put in there, they can develop Ursary, maybe get him moved over to right tackle. I think that could be an option as well. If Benjamin Morrison is available, like if he declares, I think this will be a good spot for him because I think they do decently well with drafting Notre Dame secondary. So I think they might want to kind of rekindle that.
Mhm.
So Minnesota Vikings here. One of the things with the Minnesota Vikings that as they lost the Detroit Lions, and I want to see how many. Before I make this, no, it's defensive sacks. How many sacks did they allow on the season? So they did allow 49 sacks on the season. They have a couple of guys also too, and even at minimum, if they haven't played too much, but just still depth pieces that are going to be hitting free agency. I think a guy like White Milam, who has versatility and had a solid career, played really well this year, I think could have some pretty immediate effects for this Vikings group, especially too if they move on from Sam Darnold. You're going to have a rookie quarterback back there, so you're going to want to have just more depth, more protection, more quality guys on that offensive line. And similar to with the Chargers, as I mentioned, the running back room that could be something that they can go and address a little bit later on in this draft class, super deep overall class. So here for Buffalo, a lot of different rounds they could go. A lot of defensive line guys have been taken. This also wouldn't be surprised if this is a trade back spot for Buffalo. This is what they did last year. Trade back with somebody in the front. I'm not going to do a trade. I'm just saying in
I was just
general.
looking at their draft capital.
Yeah. How much? What is their draft capital actually?
So they have that's their
It's pretty
first.
good.
They have 2 seconds. They don't have a third.
They got 10
But then
picks. It looks like. Yeah.
yeah.
So from here though, uh, they are having a couple of receivers hit the free agency market. Now, of course, they're the exact opposite receiver than Luther Burden, but still, Keon Coleman's going to be that guy that kind of takes over Mari Cooper, Mac Holland's spot. He's supposed to be the deep threat guy. You have Khalil Shakur and the tight ends, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid over the middle. I think getting a guy like Luther Burden, if Joe Brady stays there as the offensive coordinator, I think that'd be a pretty interesting gadget guy that you could throw into this Bills offense. Just another weapon that Josh Allen can utilize and could throw to. If you guys don't like that pick, I think anything defensive line or front seven could be that route, or potentially Benjamin Morrison as well in that secondary, because they have a couple guys that are in the secondary that are going to be free agent, just as like Roswell Douglas and DeMar Hamlin as well. So a couple of different routes. I end up going with Luther Burden here. Wrapping this up though, Philadelphia Eagles, very similar to Washington in kind of my analysis. They got two studs in the middle, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. And Brandon Graham, he tore his bicep, season-ending injury. He's also getting up there in age as well. And I'm pretty sure they have a couple other edge rushers that are going to be free agents. So once again, I think any remaining edge rushers that's going to be the guy that they're going to like or that they're going to want to go up to. Maybe they trade up for Michael Williams, keep the Georgia thing going. Maybe they go Princely, Uman Mielen, maybe Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoliau. That's the next one I got to practice. So I ended up picking Shamar Stewart. Looking back on it, he's a much bigger edge rusher. They might want to go more of a speed guy, or just a smaller, more like traditional, like modern day outside linebacker. I guess traditional modern day are oxymorons, but you get my point though. And so if you don't like Shamar Stewart, I think any edge rusher is going to be the guy that you're going to want to go with here. So last two picks, Omarion Hampton, running back for Kansas City Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco. Just hasn't looked the same since he has come back from his broken leg. Obviously, like a lot of people probably wouldn't if you come back from broken leg. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. But that being said, though, I think instead of like relying on Kareem Hunt staying a free agent and then like signing him like halfway through the season or Isaiah Pacheco. I think our Marion Hampton would be a great 1-2 combo with Isaiah Pacheco and eventually would become that number one guy. They did let go of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, their last running back that they drafted in the first round. So it doesn't bode well historically for Omarion Hampton, but I think he's a much better running back than Clyde Edwards-Helaire was. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the benefit of being the running back on probably the greatest college offense I think that we've seen in a really long time. So
Oh
that
yeah.
helped out his draft stock a lot. Marion Hampton was not, and he's that great of a running back. So last but not least, Detroit Lions. I think anything defensive line, edge rusher could be a very possible option. But I end up going with Gray Zabel, offensive lineman out of North Dakota State. Mix it up there a little bit. He's probably going to kick into guard. Just add some more depth in there as they have a couple of guys that are going to be free agents. So they have to kind of wait and see. But that's my draft. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought overall it was pretty good. Now that this has loaded, I think last I talked was Jalen Milrow. So I'll kind of go through these last ones. Uh, I like a lot of them. The Jahad Campbell, I'm a big Jahad Campbell fan. I like Trey Amos a lot. The Chargers one is where you lost me a little bit. I think Emeka Egbuka is a great receiver, but Luther Burden is so much better. And I also think too Luther Burden might be a better fit in the Chargers offense because Loud McConkey is your route runner. You have your down the field threat with Quentin Johnston. And then you go and get kind of your gadget guy, I think, with Luther Burden. I think he would complement that setup really, really well. And I think that would be great value
That's
at
fair.
25, let alone at 29. I feel like Luther Burden gets taken a lot sooner than this. I mean, if he is
Fair.
there, that would be a fantastic pick for the Bills. As a Patriots fan, I would absolutely hate that. But
Yeah.
that is, I think maybe either flip those two, and I think it makes more sense. And Emeka Egbuka, to be fair, has had a really good college football playoff so far.
Yeah.
So I like the Micah Williams one. I think is going to do his best work in a 4-down lineman as an edge rusher there. Ariante Aristry I like a lot. That pick makes a lot of sense. And then Wyatt Milam, I like him a lot. He will probably kick into guard, so have him be the left guard next to Christian Darrisaw when he comes back from injury. Luther Burden already talked about. Jamar Stewart, yeah, he's a bigger edge, but like to be fair, he's still a freak athlete at that 6'5",
Uh,
290,
oh
with great
yeah.
length, and I think he could develop really well.
Well, and the amount of tension that uh, is in the interior, he's probably gonna get a lot of one-on-one matchups with tackles who won't weigh that much more than him.
Yeah,
So like so it's gonna be it'll be interesting. I also feel though too like a like Jack Sawyer, for example, 6'5", 260, I think was his weight. That might also be like that more like with a little bit more speed as well would also be a good compliment
yeah,
to the interior guys. And so that's where to me it's like for the Eagles and same thing with Commanders. It's a lot of these guys are very similar to me. Like Shamar Stewart is the biggest guy, so he's on. If you're looking on the spectrum, like he's the farthest right,
yeah.
like when it comes to size wise. Uh, and but then like guys like Michael Williams, James Pierce Jr., who is another guy that I just had in there. Scroll up a little bit more. There's one other edge guy who I
Nick
thought.
Scorton,
So Nick Score's gonna be a little bit closer to Shamar Stewart on size, but yeah, like he's a little bit smaller. A lot of those guys though are still Abdul Carter is the one. He's going to be kind of that same size and weight range as like Pierce and Michael Williams. So like it's just going to be whichever guy I think that they fall in love with and like the most. Who knows what their scouts are going to say. So that's why I think it's going to be so fascinating with this. Like with the
yeah,
draft class is we're really going to kind of tell what their scouts like compared to not be when it comes to the defensive line guys because there's a lot of similar guys with very slight nuances compared to one another.
yeah. No, and I agree, and that is what is going to make this draft so interesting, especially at that position where there's a lot of depth. It's going to be which guy best fits your system, and so I think it's going to be very fascinating to watch with these last couple picks. I like the Marion Hampton pick, Pacheco. uh, He has always, in my opinion, he's a very good running back, but he's always been a benefactor of just being in a fantastic offense. I think you actually go get a Marion Hampton, who's like a in my opinion, a lot closer to Ashton Genty than I think a lot of people like are willing to admit. I
Yeah,
think that's a really good value there. And then Gray Zabel, I like a lot. He's a really athletic tackle. One of the things I will say, this Lions offensive line is pretty old, like relatively old. And so like they do need to kind of put it in a succession plan for a lot of these guys. Like I know Penei Sewell is in his fourth year, uh, fifth year now.
yeah,
But anyways, like those guys, like they have to start finding replacements for those guys.
yeah, yeah. No, and it's something to think about too. And so, uh, I just think the trenches in general the trenches in general for just a lot of teams. Like, and so that's
Yeah.
what's going to be interesting with this class. We're going to have a lot more clarity after the Senior Bowl, and then even more honestly than two after the combine, just to see these guys stack up one by one, kind of then reading the reports, seeing the reviews of seeing how people tested. Because we've had guys. Who was the guy? It was a Penn State cornerback who was like fringe first round at the end of the season.
Oh, Kalen
And then,
King.
yeah, yeah, and then was I think a seventh round pick.
No, he went
So
undrafted.
he went undrafted. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah.
he just didn't test well, and then like teams just started to not like him, and then he just fell, and they were like, no, we'd rather just not take him. And
Well,
so there's going to be a lot of those guys, I think,
that
that
one
can rise
specifically,
up.
like his lack of athleticism just showed up all over tape, and then the combine kind of confirmed the major concerns there. And a lot of teams just kind of crossed him off because he just wasn't an NFL caliber athlete.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
as sad as that is, it's just the way the business works. But yeah, that's another mock draft there in the books, mock draft 4.0 for you. And so I am excited to kind of see these keep evolving. I will say they haven't changed as much as I thought. Like both of ours,
Yeah.
like these prospects have stayed relatively stagnant as like the college football season has closed. Um, so
Well,
I am impressed that we seem to have established a clearer hierarchy amongst these
Well,
players.
because I thought about that then too. Because then, so like an example for me is like, so I was just thinking about that earlier. Like if I see his name a lot, but like Omar Norman Lott, like defensive tackle out of Tennessee, he's just not a first round guy to me because he is played he's mainly a pass
Yeah,
rushing defensive tackle. He's on the lighter side. And I think teams are going to look at that and be like that. I mean, maybe we'll take him round 3, but I think there's a lot of other different routes of guys with more NFL body types, for example. And not to single out Omar Norman a lot. If you're watching, you're welcome on the show anytime. And so if anybody's still watching at this point, thank you. But and that's what I think these guys just have typical a little bit more like NFL builds and at the NFL production as well, to go along with that. And I just use that as an example for defense tackle, but edge rushers like Mike Green, for example, out of Marshall, that's a guy you really like, or Donovan Ezaraku. Did I pronounce it
yeah,
right that time? Oh
yeah,
man, I'm learning. Uh, on the smaller end of the edge rusher size, you know what I mean? So teams might wait on them, especially to when compared to like these first round guys that we keep talking about. Like, no, it's like what GM would draft Donovan over James Pierce Jr., who James Pierce Jr. is 3-4 inches taller than him, and has I think 30 pounds on him as well.
Ezaraku's heavier than Pierce.
I thought
Pierce is like 242.
I thought Ezraku was like 230. Or am I thinking of Mike Green? I think Mike Green I was thinking of it is like 230. So sorry, Ezraku's tiny though too, isn't he? Or
Well,
is
he's
he just
6'2",
tiny in
but he
height?
has long arms and he's 247. But James Pierce is 6'4", 242. At least in
Okay,
PFF.
James Pierce Jr. is the wrong example then on my part, but you get what I'm talking about. Like from
Michael Williams is a better.
that's who. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So a defensive end that's 3 inches taller and has 30 more pounds on him and has a similar speed, if not the same speed, you know, that guy's just that guy's just going to stick out more,
yeah. Well,
than the other guy.
and that to me, I think is like a clear line in the sand in this class. And like, I'll even go up to like after like and this is my opinion, and maybe I'm just overly skeptical, but like after the 8th pick, I think you're drafting a lot of traitsy guys that are like have higher upside, but also lower floors in this class. Like that to
Yeah,
me is just the nature of how this class is going to work. Where last year you had a lot of really high floor, like blue chip prospects.
So, and I'll say this now too. This is a very bust worthy draft.
Yeah.
Like even to when we were comparing the 2022 draft class, and I wish I could predict the future because then I'd be a billionaire because I would have guessed the lottery numbers a couple weeks ago. But it just even to the 2022 draft class, we were reviewing the first round picks, and there was really 4 or 5 guys that were not like that were bust or like not contributors on their team anymore. And this one, outside of a couple of guys, like I feel like Ashton Genty's going to have a great career. I feel like Travis Hunter's going to have a great career. But even too, when you go look at like Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, like Will Johnson, like and even Ted McMillan as well. Mason Graham's going to have a good career.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do well. But so it's like those 4 or 5 guys are like they're really good. But everybody else, though, kind of your point, like they're traitsy. They're going to need to be developed. And are they going to be coming into a good situation for them
Yeah.
to succeed? You know, I think
Yeah.
there's
And
already 5 or 6 head coaching searches going on right now, like regime changes that's going on. My Falcons, just for example, like there's no changes going on, but is it a good organizational fit for a lot of these guys? Like probably
yeah.
not. You know, so we'll have to kind of wait and see. Uh,
Well, and that's like I think Shamar Stewart falls into that traitsy category. Ariante Ursary falls into that traitsy category as well. Michael Williams, like a lot of these guys, I think like there's questions where like I could see these guys turning into Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber players, versus I could also see them being off a roster in 3 years. Like that's kind of that to me is
Potentially,
like where this draft goes. So
yeah,
it's
especially as of right now. So
yeah, yeah, but we'll see as a Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Combine, as those processes kind of start to carry over, and everyone gets to like have their draft process. That I think clear names will start to emerge, and we'll start to hear a lot of the rumors. I think on these quarterbacks, I have different opinions. I think on these quarterbacks as like I feel like Cam Ward is going to rise and Shedeur Sanders might fall in this draft process as it goes further along. But that to me is a conversation for a different day, where maybe in one of my mock drafts we'll talk about that. But
I
for
like
right
it.
now, let's wrap it up. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of Tyler's 4th mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.